ocean lovers, welcome to episode number 11 of Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, helping millions around the world to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with Dr. Sylvia Earle, legendary oceanographer and founder of Mission Blue. During this episode, Sylvia shares all about her pioneering adventures beneath the surface of the ocean, about Mission Blue's global network of hope spots, and her fundamental thoughts on protecting the blue heart of the planet. All that and more coming right up. Thanks for being here. Ready to jumpstart your next underwater adventure? Good news! We're offering Dive Stories podcast listeners an exclusive 20% off all PADI recreational e-learning courses. With PADI e-learning, you can start your next dive adventure right now from the comfort of your own home before connecting at any time with a PADI dive center or resort to complete your in-water training. Head to PADI.com/courses to select which dive course is right for you and use code PODCAST, that's PODCAST, to take advantage of this exclusive 20% off discount. This offer is valid through May 15th, 2021. You're listening to Dive Stories. We bring the underwater world to you through in-depth conversations with inspiring divers from around the globe. Thanks for diving in with us as we seek adventure and save the ocean. Happy listening and happy diving. Today's Dive Stories guest is legendary oceanographer and founder of Mission Blue, Dr. Sylvia Earle. Sylvia, welcome to Dive Stories, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Great to be on board.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of PADI, we're very excited to have you on Dive Stories. And I do just want to add on a bit of a personal note that it's a real honor for me to get to interview you, since you've been a major source of inspiration for me in following my passion for ocean science and conservation over the years. So I just really want to thank you so much for being an amazing role model.
Well, I'm pleased to be part of the action, and I just am looking forward to talking about our mutually favorite subject, the ocean.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, we're actually going to go ahead and start this podcast out by diving right into a segment that we call the Dive 5. And how the Dive 5 works is at the start of each episode, I ask our guest 5 rapid fire questions about their experience as a diver and an ocean lover. So what do you think? Are you ready to answer the Dive 5, Sylvia?
Let's go.
Okay, great. Number 1, where is the first place you ever took a breath underwater?
The Weeki Wachee River in Florida, using a copper diving helmet, 1952.
Wow, amazing. Okay, number 2, in one word, how does scuba diving make you feel?
Alive.
Okay, number 3, if you added it all up, how much time do you think you've spent beneath the surface of the ocean?
Not enough.
I think others would argue a lot. But okay, number 4, what is your favorite ocean animal?
Actually, of all the creatures I meet underwater, seeing humans there as sea creatures really gives me a lift. But of course, I love all of the life in the ocean, every bit of plankton to every great whale.
Okay, last one, number 5. In just one word, what does the ocean mean to you?
Life.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for answering the Dive 5, Sylvia. We're going to get a little more in-depth now by jumping into the core of the interview. And I want to start out by asking you about one of your most universally loved and shared quotes, which is, "Every time I slip into the ocean, it's like going home." So for you, where does that feeling of home in the ocean come from? And why do you think this quote in particular resonates so powerfully with so many others?
The fact that it resonates with others may be because others feel the same way, that when we actually submerge in the ocean and see the galaxy of life that is there, you realize that it's like diving into the history of life on Earth, to realize that humans are a part of this. We're not apart from it. So it's really seeing life in its greatest form of diversity, and how can you not go into the ocean and feel that sense of humility and wonder? For me, it's just natural.
Yeah, amazingly well said. And that quote, the one, we just spoke about, it's really one of just countless others that are commonly referenced by people all around the world. Statements you've said during speeches, statements you've written in the many books that you've authored, and also statements from your Netflix documentary, Mission Blue, which for anyone that's listening that hasn't watched Mission Blue yet, please make sure you add it to your watch list as soon as possible. Highly recommend. But what I'm curious about, Sylvia, is there one quote of yours in particular that you hope people keep top of mind?
You should take care of the ocean as if your life depends on it, because it does. How's that?
That is an amazing quote. I absolutely love that sentiment. And I think that the more people who keep that top of mind, definitely the better for everyone and everything. What is it about that quote in particular that you love so much?
In a way, it articulates what should be obvious to everyone, that the ocean makes Earth habitable above all other elements. It starts with the water, but it's the living ocean. The fact that the ocean from top to bottom is a living system. It's not just rocks and water. Divers see that. Not everybody is aware, as much as divers are, that the ocean is alive, but the ocean also is in trouble. And as divers, and certainly from my standpoint, I've been a witness to see changes in a very short period of time. I mean, life is short. In my lifetime, I've seen both good news and bad news. Part of the good news is that we now know what we could not know when I began diving in the 1950s. The technology that has enabled us to go places and dive more safely, to travel in ways that are just unthinkable when I was a kid. Coupled with that, though, are the dramatic shifts in the numbers of fish, the decline of coral reefs, the decline of sharks. I used to think, because I didn't know any better, that I should be afraid if I see sharks underwater. Now I'm afraid when I don't see sharks.
For those of us that follow your work and look up to you as an ocean leader.
Look down.
There you go. Look down to you as an ocean leader. It's almost hard to imagine that at one point you weren't a scuba diver, but obviously that's the case. You've been a pioneer in diving for decades, diving all around the world. And I'm told that you even still go diving on a fairly regular basis, which is just amazing on so many levels. But I'd love if you could share actually initially how your scuba diving journey actually began.
With 2 words: breathe naturally. That was my major professor then at Florida State University. Later, I followed him to Duke University, where I got my master's and PhD. But as a student in the summer of 1953, Harold Hum managed somehow to acquire 2 scuba tanks and 2 of those big double hose regulators with a mouthpiece that was really designed for rough, tough Navy divers. and we were literally given two words of instruction that my fellow students, there were 8 of us in the class of marine biology that summer. We were about 5 miles offshore from St. Mark's in the Gulf of Mexico, 5 meters depth. And we had a chance to experience the joy of breathing underwater. And my first thought was, I really can't do this. It's not possible. Through this mouthpiece, I can be underwater. And I read Jacques Cousteau's Silent World, and really great incentive to go. And once I did go over the side and with a tank on my back, and realized this is possible. You can take a breath and water doesn't come in. You seal your lips around the mouthpiece, and it was glorious. I could stand on one finger. I could do, backflips, be like a ballerina underwater. But most importantly, I could just stay quietly, except when I had to exhale, and watch the fish. And I think one of the things that impressed me the most was I thought, here's a passport to be able to go watch the fish on their own terms. And I found the fish were watching me.
Well, that sounds absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing about your early scuba diving memories with us. I think that anyone listening can relate in a certain way. And then, also just because of the time and the era in which you first had those first scuba diving experiences, it's also unique. It's amazing that you've been a pioneer in diving, and so much of what you learned over decades has, paid off for all the rest of us. And throughout your career, you've also been a pioneer, I want to touch on, in deep ocean exploration and research. So in 1979, you set a world record for the deepest dive in an untethered armored diving suit. In 1992, you founded the deep sea robotics company, DOER Marine. And you've also been to some of the deepest depths in the ocean in submersibles. So for divers and ocean lovers that haven't yet, or more than likely won't have the opportunity to explore the deep sea, what do you want people to know about the depths of our ocean planet?
Most of life on Earth lives in the dark, below where divers can go. You can get a feel for it by diving at night. Think of it, that most of life on Earth lives in the dark. And even 100 meters, let alone 1,000 meters, is much cooler than it is at the surface. And pressure, of course, increases as you go deeper. So most of life on Earth lives under higher pressure than is comfortable for humans. It's dark and it's cold, but it's beautiful. It's where life on Earth actually prospers the most. So I'm determined to democratize access to the deep sea. So I've been working with my daughter, son-in-law. We've been working for years trying to figure out how we can go that next step. Even before starting DOER Marine, Deep Ocean Exploration and Research, that my daughter and son-in-law now own and operate to build equipment, both robotic equipment and systems that can take humans in a nice safe package into the deep sea. We started, again, working with engineers, started deep ocean engineering back in 1980. In 81, we had developed underwater robots, hundreds of little underwater robots, and 3 little manned submersibles, Deep Rover. The first one was one-person system. The next 2 accommodated 2 people. And what DOR Marine is now developing, a 3-person, 2 3-person systems through the foundation called Deep Hope. And the idea is to literally make the ocean more accessible. What I think is urgently needed is access to the sea with little submarines that are really safe to at least get down to 1,000 meters. That's within the twilight zone. Still not the greatest depth, but when you think we have the technology. That's the frustrating thing. How many people have been 11 kilometers, 7 miles up in the sky? And you can count on your fingers the number of people who have been to the deepest part of the ocean. So it's there. The technology has existed for a long time. What's with it that we all kind of gaze to the stars and say, I want to go there? And I'm glad we should do that. But what about the galaxy of life underwater? And with a submarine, you have the gift of time. You can stay longer. You can sit on the bottom, as I have done many times. Sometimes at 100 meters, sometimes at 1,000 meters, and become one with the ocean in a clear sphere to look out and see other creatures looking back in. It's there to be done.
Wow. Well, sign me up.
Let's go. It's where divers need to go the next step.
Wow. Well, that's amazing, your vision, and I also love the sentiment about the galaxy and the ocean, right? Because when I think of, so many deep ocean animals producing their own light, it's like a galaxy of stars.
Yes.
Now, shifting gears here a little bit, Sylvia, among the many incredible ways that you've used your voice to speak out for the ocean, one of the most notable was your award-winning 2009 TED Talk about hope spots, which of course led to the launch of your nonprofit Mission Blue. So for our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with Mission Blue and hope spots, I'd love if you could share, what are they all about?
Winning the TED Prize gave me the opportunity to make a wish big enough to change the world, and the TEDsters pledged to help make that wish come true. And the wish was to ignite public support, to use all means possible, to bring about protection for the ocean with a network of protected areas, hope spots, large enough to save and restore the blue heart of the planet. So that was in 2009. One of the individuals who listened to the talk came up afterwards and said, I think I get it. If we fail to protect the ocean, nothing else matters. And he pledged $1 million through his foundation, the Planet Heritage Foundation. And that made possible an expedition the following year involving more than 100 individuals, leaders, scientists, decision makers, policy makers, divers. It was like a brain trust trying to figure out how do we implement this wish. And Mission Blue really evolved out of that. And so did the concept of really enlisting communities around the world, divers around the world, to be ambassadors, to use their personal and collective power, to embrace places that they know and love and care about, willing to take action to secure the highest possible level of protection, one place at a time, a network of hope for the ocean, and therefore for the future of humankind. So it's taken off. We started with, really about a dozen places that seem like no-brainers, like who wouldn't think that the Galapagos Islands needs protection? I mean, really sincere protection. The land has a lot of protection, but the surrounding ocean, not so much. It's been open for fishing, with a very small percentage really fully protected for the fish. But just the reverse of the land, where 97% protected and 3% where humans can actually have their houses and businesses and things. The ocean, 97% open for fishing, 3% protected. I mean, highly protected. So around the world, the same ratio, we were only about 3% of the ocean is really safeguarded for fish and lobsters and all the other creatures who really are at home in the sea. 97% of the ocean is open for exploitation of various sorts. And it's no wonder the ocean is in trouble, that we need to shift gears and think about the ocean as our life support system. I mean, astronauts know this. From high in the sky, they look down and they see Earth is blue, and it's the ocean that is our life support system. Take a breath. Most of it has come from little creatures in the ocean that have generated oxygen. Water, where does it come from? 97% of Earth's water is ocean. It's where home for most of life on Earth actually is. It's the big generator that keeps us alive. Now we have to keep the ocean alive. So how do we do that? Every way we can. Everybody can do something. But the something that we can pull together to make happen is to use our individual and collective power to develop the policies, the laws, the habits that we have to really embrace to fully protect as much of the ocean as we possibly can. And there's a goal set by the United Nations that has come about because what seems now to be obvious. We have to take care of the ocean. We have to increase the level of protection from 3% in the next 10 years to at least 30%. We can do it in coastal areas. And that's where most of the hope spots currently are established, where people can really work with their local communities, work with their local governments, work with their state and national governments, working with the United Nations to say, enough extraction, enough damage, too much, too much. We have to give back to the ocean. We need to have fully protected areas where even the fish are safe. And when you think about it, it's one thing to protect an area where clownfish live because they tend to be homebodies. There's a relatively small space that you can get your arms around to protect fish that are resident in a small area. But how do you protect tuna? How do you protect sharks? We have to combine protection of specific areas in the ocean with overarching policies, protecting swimways that are equivalent to the flyways that birds enjoy protection, that nations have come together to protect migrating birds. But how about the turtles? How about the sharks, the whales that travel over wide distances? And how about the ocean itself that doesn't really stay put? You can't fence a place in the ocean and expect that it will survive. It's all connected. So even for that little clownfish and its sea anemone, we need to recognize that the water surrounding it connects with waters all over the world. So
Yes.
a combination of safeguarding, highly protecting specific areas, that network of hope. We now have 136 places around the world where communities, a lot of divers, have stepped up and said, yes, I get it. I really love this place. Or places. Divers get around, you know. They might go to Aldabra. They might go to the Seychelles. They might go to Palau or to San Francisco or to the Gulf of Mexico or you name it, the Cayman Islands, and say, you know, I want to take my power as an observer and use the stories that I can tell about what I've seen over the years as a diver, or as a new diver, I commit to taking photographs to add to the database that every hope spot now, working with the organization called ESRI, the system that gives us the Global Information Systems, GIS, to be able to assemble various kinds of data around places. Mostly it started on the land, but now is merging with the sea. And in partnership with ESRI, Mission Blue, for every hope spot, has developed a framework for inputting data, inputting images, inputting stories in ESRI's story map system, so that your experiences as a diver, your encounters with whales or with sharks or with clownfish or with anything, lobsters. How many have you seen? What are they doing? Having data: when, where, who, what. Answer some simple questions that can be accessed on the Mission Blue website for individual hope spots. You can be a champion. And if you find that there's not a hope spot that already exists in your favorite dive location or in your favorite place in the ocean, a place you know needs respect and care, sign up, become a champion. Go to the Mission Blue website, fill out the form, send in the application, and make a difference for the ocean you love, for the world that keeps us alive.
Okay, ocean lovers, it's time for the dive log, the part of the show where we feature an epic dive story from one of our amazing listeners. This episode's listener dive story comes from PADI Master Scuba Diver trainer Frank Malel about an unforgettable dive he had in Tanzania. Let's dive in.
I think my best dive story will be diving on a small wall, 12 meters, last dive of the day, like 30 or plus meters of visibility, looking at the juvenile octopus. Then I turn to my left, parallel to the wall, like 20 meters away, I see a shadow coming, and I'm like, oh, okay, pot of dolphin again. Then I look back into this cute little juvenile octopus coming out of this tiny hole, going back, so I'm pretty much enjoying the sight. Then I'm like, for those milliseconds, I look back to the shadow just to confirm, and yep, it's a bus coming towards me. Yes, a humpback whale. And I will not forget that day and that moment.
Thank you so much, Frank, for sharing that incredible underwater experience with us. I would say that a surprise visit from a humpback whale definitely makes for an unforgettable dive. Listeners, if you have an epic dive story to share too, head to padi.com/podcast to record and submit one of your most memorable dive stories for a chance to be featured in an upcoming episode. We love hearing from our global community of PADI divers, so head to padi.com/podcast today. And now, back to this episode. So, Sylvia, as people around the world continue to navigate the global COVID-19 pandemic, I'd love if you could share from your perspective some of the ways in which this virus has shown us that not only are humans highly connected, but that humans and the natural world are inextricably connected.
Nature has given us a clear wake-up call with COVID-19. Not that we didn't have it before. It's just that now we're at a level in the 21st century where we can share the view much more effectively, to know that we are all in this together, for sure. And imagine if we did not know what we now know about viruses, about how to combat them, we would be in probably the same terrible fix that people were centuries ago, not knowing what to do, but just suffering from the consequence of these amazing forces that have existed. In fact, most viruses are vital to our existence. We need them. We need bacteria. We need the microbes. But some of them are none of them really care about us. That's the thing. They just are what they are. But they make the world that makes our lives possible. And when a virus comes along that is just suited for engaging humans as a host, that's when we realize that we're not in control. We're really not. That we're part of nature. And understanding and having some humility about who we are, about our relationship to the rest of the living world, should just give us pause. We have disrupted and destroyed so much of the basic systems that shape planetary chemistry. You shouldn't be afraid of the big word biogeochemistry. You should say, yeah, that's it. Bio, life, geo, rocks, chemistry, all the elements that keep us alive. What's not to love about understanding how the world works? If we are to make peace with nature, we have to really go that step further and understand that our existence, everything we care about, means understanding and respecting the natural world.
Yeah. And in talking about the relationship between humans and the natural world, as we look to prevent and slow down the many environmental challenges facing our ocean planet, from viruses to climate change to pollution to overfishing, why is it important that we take time to consider the impacts specifically of, the products we buy, the energy we consume, and the food that we eat? And I'd love to hear from your perspective, what are some of the greatest things that we as individuals can do to create positive change?
And the first thing is to not believe you don't have power as one individual. I mean, that is such a self-defeating perspective. Everyone has, at this point in history, as compared to any who have ever lived any time in the past, you have superpower. All of us do. It's the power of knowing what nobody could know when I was a kid. We've come so far, so fast in terms of appreciating what makes the world go round. Now we know we have the capacity to, if we wanted to, we could kill all the whales. We came really close. We could kill all the sharks. We're pretty close. We've eliminated about 90%. We could have the power to take every last bluefin tuna, if that should be our goal. As a diver, you can be a champion to keep the fish in the ocean where they belong. Their numbers are down to a fraction of what they were. And why? Because of us. We're the agent of destruction. We're the biggest force. Like some people liken our power right now of destruction to be like the comet that struck the Earth and killed all the dinosaurs and lots of the rest of life on Earth about 65 million years ago, and causing what we now refer to as the Anthropocene, the age of humans. You could call it the Plasticozoic, the age of plastics. We've littered the planet with these very useful, we thought at the time, and they still are, but we've overdone it, just like we've overdone the burning of fossil fuels. But the good news is we know it. That's your superpower, all of you who might be listening. You know, look in the mirror. Who are you? What is your special gift? Are you good with numbers? Are you good with a camera? Are you a super diver? Are you good with kids? Do you have a way with words? Whatever it is, don't for a moment think that you can't do something. You have to do something, or in not doing something, you're making a difference. You're that other side of complacency. No one can do everything, but every one of us can do something, and together make a positive impact on the future. And we have to. It's the best chance humankind has ever had to go from this habit that we've had of consuming the natural world to foster our prosperity.
To wrap up, Sylvia, I know you have a lifetime of extraordinary underwater adventures to choose from, but with the name of this podcast being Dive Stories, I have to ask, what is one of your most memorable dive stories that you'd like to share with myself and listeners?
Well, in the 1980s, I was doing a project in a little island in the Bahamas called Lee Stocking Island that had been established as a research station. And I had the ability at the time to take the little submarine called the Deep Rover, one-person submarine. You put it on, and you feel like a diver. It's like putting on a diving suit. David Duboulet came out to be part of the action and photograph taking that little submarine down to the deepest, we thought the deepest it could go, to 1,000 meters. And on the day that we were set out to make this descent to the deepest place off the coast of Lee Stocking Island, what was just so moving was to get into the water in this clear sphere where I had been diving over many years as a scuba diver, going out to visit the coral reefs, going out to see stromatolites, one of the few places in the world where this rare geological formation that once was really common, but now a few places you can see these formations, Lee Stocking Island, and splashdown, clear, beautiful Bahamian water, and seeing David get into the water with his big camera, following me down in the submarine, and watching the change in color from this gorgeous aquamarine surface color down to shades of blue, deep blue, blue-green, and indigo blue. And then the last image of David silhouette against the light coming from above. And then he had to go back to the surface. I could keep going. And I kept going and going and going, hoping to get down to the ultimate 1,000 meters. But according to the chart, I should land at a place close to 1,000 meters and then be able to slip over the edge into the desired maximum depth. But when I got down to, it was about 2,500 feet down, I hit bottom. I didn't hit bottom. I lightly touched the bottom, softly. And that's not what the chart said. It said it should be a little bit deeper, but okay. I started out on the course, got my directions from the surface communication. Okay, here's the heading to go out, and you'll get ultimately, it'll slope down to 1,000 meters. Okay, so I started up, moving my little submarine forward, and instead of going deeper, I got shallower and shallower, and there was a big sand dune right in front of me, and it was about 40 feet tall. And then it sloped and went down the other side. So I had hit this gathering of sand dunes, and it was more than 2,000 feet beneath the surface. Nobody had sand dunes on their mind in deep water. I never did get to 1,000 meters. I went up and down over this formation that was newly discovered. But who knew until we could actually get down there and explore. It was really exciting, but I think most exciting was while I was sitting there contemplating what to do next, a big grouper came over and started using his big grouper lips on the outside of the clear sphere, like kissing the submarine. Like, what are you? Who are you? Every time I go into the deep water, you never know who you're going to see, but it's going to be exciting. Know what you're going to discover, but it's going to be good.
Amazing. Well, Sylvia, on behalf of our global community of PADI divers and ocean lovers, thank you for your lifelong dedication to exploring, studying, and protecting the blue heart of the planet, and for the immense amount of inspiration and hope you've given to generations of people all around the world. And thank you for joining us on Dive Stories. It's really been so wonderful speaking with you.
Allison, if I could add one thing, I've enjoyed the relationship with PADI over many years, and the relationship that National Geographic has had with PADI, and now partnering with Mission Blue and PADI. And I know that education is such an important part of what PADI does. Mm-hmm. And I have some advice for the kids out there. It's no child left dry. I mean, You've got to get out there, kids. Get wet and do it in a way that we now know can be done safely. You can be an explorer. You never know what you're going to find. And thanks to PADI, really learning the best way, the safe way to go take the plunge. Just go do it. Get wet. Dive in.
Thanks for tuning in to Dive Stories. You've just heard Dr. Sylvia Earle, legendary oceanographer and founder of Mission Blue. To learn more about Sylvia and her work, visit missionblue.com and follow Mission Blue on social media at mission_blue. Inspired to connect with the ocean further? Good news! We're offering Dive Stories podcast listeners an exclusive 20% off all PADI recreational e-learning courses. With PADI e-learning, you can start your next dive adventure right now from the comfort of your own home. E-learning allows you to complete the online portion first and then connect at any time with a PADI dive center or resort to complete your in-water training. Whether you're just starting or continuing your diving journey, PADI e-learning is an ideal way to jumpstart your next underwater adventure. So head to PADI.com/courses to select which course is right for you and use code PODCAST, that's PODCAST, to take advantage of this exclusive 20% off discount. This offer is valid through May 15th, 2021. This has been Dive Stories, brought to you by PADI, Seek Adventure, Save the Ocean. If you love the ocean and enjoyed this podcast episode, please subscribe to Dive Stories in your podcast app and feel free to leave a review. Follow PADI on social media and head to PADI.com to join our community of torchbearers working together to seek adventure and save the ocean. I'm your host, Ocean Allison. Happy diving!